Matt Walsh, popular American conservative commentator, roasts Canada. He's totally correct. Let's take a look. I'll also be weaving in other clips.
And we'll start with the fact that Canada is squandering its vast natural resources, which is a grave injustice that affects millions of lives. Canada has almost unparalleled access to some of the most valuable God-given resources on the planet, and they're simply not using them. And people are suffering in large numbers as a result. Under the Don Rowe doctrine, as we call it now, which our president has clearly laid out, this is a major problem that needs to be rectified. By most estimates, Canada has around $800,000 in natural resource wealth per capita. That's more than 6 times the resource wealth in the U.S. per capita. So, in other words, given their small population, there's no reason why every Canadian shouldn't be well off. Every single one of them should have immediate access to high-quality health care, a home, stable income. On a per-person basis, the typical Canadian should have more wealth than the typical American, especially since the demographics of Canada, historically speaking, until recently, have been relatively homogenous.
It's so sad. Canadians should be rich.
Now, what's happened instead is that Canada has squandered this wealth. They've passed environmental regulations that make it difficult, if not impossible, to build new pipelines, dams, mines. Before anything can get done, they have gender equity reviews to conduct and emission standards to meet and high taxes to pay and, of course, Indigenous elders to consult.
Okay, I'm going to come back to this, but we'll take a look at part of this clip here. This is about resources in Quebec and some ridiculous protests. These protests are Canadian culture.
Over 100 protesters took to the streets to denounce Bill 97. They were there in solidarity of a group called Mamu First Nation.
And we should just start insulting people like this way more often. There's no debate here to be had. These people are disgusting.
Inuk activist Emmy Fleming Dubuc organized the event. She says this bill highlights the larger issue of natural resource extraction at the expense of Indigenous people.
How is it at the expense of people? People like this actually suck. Canadians are dying from deaths of despair, and a large part of that just has to do with the fact that the economy doesn't grow, people don't have any money, and all these people, like it's not just them, but all these factors contribute to the fact that many Canadians are choosing MAID, are just living lives of quiet desperation and cannot have a family. The fertility numbers have gone off a cliff. There's so many problems in Canada. I'm going to go back to this Matt Walsh clip.
Canadians appear to believe that it's important to sabotage their own economy for ideological reasons, which is what they're doing every day. But whatever their reasoning, they're making themselves poor on purpose, and many Canadians don't appear to even realize it. That's why there was mass hysteria among Canadians the other day.
Okay, he's going to make that point, but I'm going to play one more clip here. Here is Guilbeault first talking about climate change. This crap is a huge reason why Canada is so poor.
Unfortunately, it's what we've come to expect from conservative leaders in Canada these days. It wasn't always like that, but it is like that now, whether it's Danielle Smith, whether it's Scott Moe, whether it's Pierre Poilievre. I mean, the official position of the Conservative Party of Canada is still that climate change doesn't exist. So why should we be surprised if they invite people in parliamentary committee who deny the very existence of climate change while
this guy is such a clown. And again, you can't even have a debate with people like that. They just need to be shamed and mocked and ridiculed until they stop going into politics. Again, if you care about climate change, go work at Tesla or something. Don't get into politics and try to bully everybody. Here's Trudeau.
And the NDP is expressing reservations about the carbon tax. What does it signal that you have lost many premiers and now you may be losing the NDP's support for your plan as well?
I feel for the NDP and for Jagmeet. This is a hard moment.
Such a fake person.
There are political headwinds. There's a lot of political pressure. I'm certainly feeling it. Everyone should be feeling it. By folks out there who are worried about affordability, who are worried about climate change.
No one's worried about climate change. Nobody. Even if you're so brainwashed to think you are, you're actually not. It's something else in your life. You can worry about climate change when you're rich. If somebody comes in and they're worth $30 million and they're worried about climate change, I'll at least hear them out because, okay, maybe you actually are. By the way, that person probably still flies around on a private jet, so they actually probably don't care.
And I don't know. My perspective is this is a time to actually do more to fight climate change, not less.
Insanity.
To do more to put money in people's pockets. And it's not a handful of conservative politicians and premiers that are going to turn me away from continuing the fight against climate change, the fight for a better future, and the fight to put more money in people's pockets.
We need economic growth way more than all this other stuff. Productivity is the most important thing long-term to a country. By the way, a whole bunch of Canadians wouldn't even agree with that statement. That's how brainwashed people are in this country.
When the Canadian paper Globe and Mail ran a story about just how poor Canadians are. This was the title of the article, quote, "Out of nowhere, Canada became poorer than Alabama. How is that possible?" Now,
that's been true for a while, by the way.
Great headline for a couple of reasons. First of all, Canada didn't become poor out of nowhere. There's a very clear line we can trace here. For 10 years, as you can see here on the chart, Canada's GDP per capita, which is a useful way to measure quality of life, has been going down while ours has been going up. And that means Americans have the benefit of a much stronger economy, which means more jobs and higher wages. It began surging when Trump in his first term lowered the tax rate for businesses. On the other hand, Canada's entire economy stalled the moment that Liberals took over the government, raised taxes, increased regulations, began flooding the country with foreigners, mostly from South Asia. This has been a very slow and very noticeable decline that's been happening. To be more accurate, as you can see there, the percent of foreign-born Canadians has been increasing for decades, and it's accelerated even more in the past decade. So there's nothing about Canada's economic situation that should catch anyone by surprise or come out of nowhere. Also, of course, the headline is amusing because they're acting like Alabama is like a third world hellscape. They have some kind of South Park cartoon understanding of the world. In reality, Alabama is a hub for the aerospace industry as well as biotech, defense, car.
That's true. Alabama is not, I've never been there, but from the videos I've seen, it looks like a great place. I'll finish my video off with this short clip.
But unfortunately, Canada also has a very dark secret that has been swept under the rug for far too long. And it's time we rip that rug right off. 90,000 lives. That's how many people have been killed through Canada's Medical Assistance in Dying program, or MAID for short, since it was legalized in 2016.
The number's even a little higher now because this video is not brand new. Incredible. You don't think those two things are correlated? A terrible economy that Canadians actively suppress and people using medical assistance in dying. Of course they're correlated. It's madness. I'll finish my video there. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. Have a great day.